Hello, everyone. Before we begin our descent, make sure to like and subscribe to HushLedger. Leaving a comment telling us where you're listening from helps the algorithm keep you in the dark with us. Now, let's begin. Story 1. The Brass Figurine. I'm a historian, an archivist by trade. My world is one of quiet cataloging and the gentle, dusty smell of old paper. When the estate of the reclusive artist Silas Umbridge was bequeathed to our small regional museum, it was a career-defining moment for me. I was tasked with sorting through the chaos of his studio. Pause. Most of it was predictable. Dried-out paint tubes, canvases warped with strange, geometric landscapes. But in the bottom drawer of a heavy oak desk, wrapped in faded velvet, I found it. It was a brass figurine about 6 inches tall. It wasn't human, not exactly. It had too many joints in its limbs, and its face was a smooth, featureless oval, polished to a soft, buttery gleam. It was heavy for its size, unnaturally so, and cold. A deep, sink-into-your-bones cold that didn't seem to abate, even when I held it under the studio's single, dusty halogen bulb. There was an inscription on the base in a language I didn't recognize. It looked like a series of interlocking spirals. I'm not a superstitious man. I deal in facts in provenance. But something about the figurine, it felt possessive. I started taking it home with me, telling myself I was studying it. I placed it on my bedside table. That's when the sounds began. Not loud noises. Not at first. It was the soft, metallic tick, tick, tick of cooling metal, except it would happen in the dead of night, long after the house had settled. It was the sound of something moving. Then the dream started. Vivid, suffocating dreams of being in a vast, dark space, with that smooth, featureless face always just at the edge of my vision, turning slowly towards me. I'd wake up gasping, the room freezing, the smell of old brass and ozone thick in the air. I started to find it in different positions. I'd leave it facing the window and wait to find it facing the bed. Its smooth head would be tilted, as if in curiosity. One morning, I found it on the floor, directly beside my bed, its cold, polished, oval face pressed against the side of the mattress, as if it had been watching me sleep. I tried to put it back in the museum. I locked it in a secure display case. The next morning, the case was undisturbed, the locks intact. But the figurine was gone. I drove home, my heart hammering against my ribs. Sound of a deep breath. It was on my kitchen counter, waiting, and it was no longer cold. It was warm, almost body temperature. The final straw was the photograph. I set up a motion-activated camera on my dresser, pointed at the bedside table. The footage was mostly darkness, broken by my own restless sleep. But at 3:17 a.m., the figurine shifted. It didn't move like an object being pushed. It unfolded. Those too many joints extended, and it spider-walked with a delicate, metallic clicking down the leg of the table and across the floor, out of frame, towards me. I didn't sleep again. I wrapped the thing in its original velvet and drove to the oldest, deepest quarry I could find, a place of stagnant, black water. I threw the bundle as far as I could. It hit the water with a soft plop and sank instantly. A sense of immense, Overwhelming relief washed over me. That was 3 weeks ago. The dreams have stopped. The cold is gone. But yesterday, I was cleaning my apartment, trying to erase the memory. I moved my bed to vacuum, and there, pressed into the carpet where the figurine had lain that one night, was a perfect, permanent impression. The outline of its body and the smooth, perfect circle of its face. Voice drops to a whisper, and the carpet within that circle is dead, brittle and gray, as if all the life has been sucked right out of it. It's a stain I can't remove, a reminder that some objects don't like to be thrown away. Story 2. The Harmony Box. My grandmother called it her Harmony Box. It was a beautiful thing, I'll give it that. A small, lacquered wooden chest, inlaid with mother-of-pearl in swirling floral patterns. She said it was an heirloom passed down through the women in our family. Its purpose was simple. She claimed, you write down your troubles on a slip of paper, place them inside, and the box absorbs the negative energy. It gives you harmony. When she passed, the box came to me. I was skeptical, of course. A junior marketing manager, drowning in deadlines and office politics, doesn't have much time for mystical knickknacks. But one particularly brutal day, after my boss had publicly eviscerated a campaign I'd spent weeks on, I did it. I scrawled Jason's micromanaging on a post-it note, folded it, and shoved it into the box with a cynical laugh. The next day, Jason called in sick. A rare flu. The day after, he was better, but quieter, distant. He stopped hovering over my shoulder. The constant, nitpicking emails ceased. A coincidence, I told myself. But the following week, I was stressed about money. I wrote credit card debt on a new slip and placed it inside. 2 days later, I got a letter from the bank. A billing error in my favor had wiped out a significant chunk of the balance. It worked. My God, it actually worked. The Harmony Box became my secret weapon. A petty grievance with a neighbor? In the box. Anxiety about a doctor's appointment? In the box. And like clockwork, the problem would resolve itself. The neighbor suddenly decided to move. The doctor found nothing wrong. I felt lighter, happier than I had in years. The air in my apartment even seemed clearer, smelling faintly of jasmine and clean linen. The first crack in the perfection was the cat. Mrs. Gable's yappy, hateful little tabby that used to use my flower beds as a litter box. I'd written its name down in a moment of frustration. It didn't just stop coming around. It was found dead 3 days later, no visible injuries, just still. I felt a cold knot of guilt in my stomach, but I brushed it away. Another coincidence. The true horror began when I got ambitious. I was up for a major promotion, competing against a colleague named Sarah. She was brilliant, kind, and a shoo-in for the position. In a moment of pure, unadulterated envy, I wrote Sarah's promotion on a crisp piece of paper and slid it into the box. This time, the result wasn't quiet or distant. Sarah was involved in a hit and run on her way to work the next morning. She survived, but with 2 broken legs and a fractured spine. Her career was, for the moment, over. The promotion was mine. I stared at the beautiful, lacquered box on my shelf. It seemed to gleam smugly in the afternoon light. The faint scent of jasmine now smelled cloying, sickly sweet. I realized with a dawning, gut-wrenching terror that the box didn't just absorb negative energy. It acted on it. It didn't create harmony. It enforced it through the most direct and brutal means possible. It removed obstacles permanently. I tore it from the shelf, my hands trembling. I had to get rid of it, destroy it. I grabbed a hammer from the kitchen drawer, but as I raised it, a sound stopped me dead. It was a soft, melodic hum coming from inside the box. A gentle, pleasant sound that was utterly horrifying. And then the lid ever so slightly lifted, not enough to open, just a fraction of an inch. And from the darkness within, I heard a wet, clicking sound like a tongue running over teeth. It was satisfied. I couldn't bring myself to strike it. What would it do if I tried? I threw the hammer down and backed away. The box sits on my shelf now. I haven't used it since. But last night, I found a new slip of paper on the floor beside it. A single word, written in a handwriting that was almost mine, but sharper, more angular. It read, "Guilt. The box is trying to help. It's just trying to maintain the harmony. And I'm so afraid of what it's going to do next." Story 3. The Reflection of Anna Ivanova. I work in high-end estate sales. It's a strange business, sifting through the leftover pieces of a life. The job at the Crestwood Manor estate was our biggest yet. A sprawling, decaying Victorian filled with the treasures of a family that had died out. The last occupant, an elderly woman named Anna Ivanova, had lived and died alone. The air was thick with the smell of dust, mothballs, and the faint, sweet rot of dried flowers. My find was in the attic. It was a full-length cheval mirror, its ornate silver frame tarnished almost black with age. The glass, however, was flawless. It wasn't silvered like a normal mirror. It was a deep, liquid-looking glass, like a pool of still, gray water. When you looked into it, your reflection was different, not in a grotesque way. It was subtler. You looked happier, more at peace. The lines of stress around my eyes from the divorce, the perpetual slump in my shoulders, they were gone. My reflection smiled back at me with a serenity I hadn't felt in years. I had to have it. I paid the company a pittance for it, listed it as a blemished antique, and had it moved into my bedroom. At first, it was wonderful. I'd stand before it for minutes at a time, just watching this calmer, more confident version of myself. I started calling her Anna, after the previous owner. Anna always seemed to know what to do. When I was indecisive about an outfit, I'd check the mirror and my reflection would subtly nod or shake her head. When I was preparing for a difficult client meeting, I'd practice in front of it, and Anna's confident posture would guide me. But the reflections began to diverge. I'd be brushing my teeth, tired and grumpy, and Anna would be in the mirror behind me, already dressed and smiling brightly. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water, and I'd see her already standing in the mirror's frame, watching me from the darkness, her eyes gleaming with a wakefulness I didn't feel. The changes started small. I'd find a book on my nightstand I didn't remember buying on a topic I had no interest in. My grocery list would have items circled in a handwriting that was almost mine. Then, one morning, I woke up and the smell of strong, black tea filled my apartment. I don't drink tea. I found a cup, still warm, on the kitchen counter. The radio was on, tuned to a classical station I never listened to. I started covering the mirror with a sheet. The next morning, the sheet would be neatly folded on a chair. I tried to move it, but it was impossibly heavy, as if rooted to the floor. I even tried to break it, swinging a hammer with all my strength. The hammer bounced off the glass with a sound like a deep bell, leaving not a single mark. My own reflection, Anna, stared back at me, her face a mask of profound disappointment. She slowly raised her hand and pointed at me, and in the silence of my room, I heard a faint, whispered word. Mine. The final surrender happened last Tuesday. I woke up and my body moved without my consent. I walked to the closet and put on a dress I'd never worn, a dark, vintage thing I'd found in the estate sale. I sat on my vanity, her vanity, and my hands expertly applied makeup in a style from another era. I watched, a prisoner in my own skull, as Anna looked back at me from the mirror, her smile one of complete and utter possession. I'm still here. I can feel my own thoughts, my own fears, but they're getting quieter, like a radio station fading out. She's in control most of the time now. She talks to people with my voice. She goes to my job. They tell me I seem so much more refined, so much more settled. I'm writing this down when she sleeps, a tiny window of control in the dead of night. The mirror is no longer a reflection. It's a window, and she's not just in it anymore. She's out here, with me, or what's left of me. Story 4. The Whistling Kettle. My wife, Clara, and I bought the little cottage for its charm. It was nestled in the woods, a fixer-upper with a stone fireplace and a kitchen that still had its original 1940s fittings. The previous owner, an old man who'd passed away peacefully in his sleep, had left behind a few items. The realtor said to just donate whatever we didn't want. Most of it was junk, but we kept one thing, a beautiful old copper kettle. It was dented and tarnished, but it had character. It sat on our antique gas stove, a centerpiece. The first time we used it, we noticed its whistle. It wasn't the shrill, piercing shriek of a modern kettle. It was a low, mournful, three-note melody, almost like a little tune. It was strange, but we found it charming. We called it the kettle song. The changes in the house started gradually. We'd hear the faint sound of someone humming that same three-note tune when the house was empty. The smell of pipe tobacco would sometimes waft through the living room, though neither of us smoked. Clara, a deeply rational geologist, blamed it on the old ventilation system, on memories seeping out of the woodwork. But then the kettle started whistling on its own. The first time, we were in the living room. The stove was off. The kitchen was dark. And then, clear as day, the three-note melody echoed through the cottage. We rushed in. The kettle was cold to the touch. We laughed it off, a trick of the plumbing maybe, but it happened again and again, sometimes in the middle of the day, sometimes at 3 a.m., that lonely, whistling tune pulling us from a deep sleep. Clara stopped finding it charming. She wanted to get rid of it. I stubbornly insisted it was just a quirk. It's part of the house's history, I'd say. That's when the shadows started. I catch a glimpse of a tall, thin shadow out of the corner of my eye, standing in the hallway or sitting in my armchair. It would be gone when I turned my head. The smell of pipe tobacco became constant, a stale, cloying presence. One night, the whistling woke me. It was different this time. It wasn't 3 notes. It was 4. The new note was sharp, angry. I shook Clara awake. "Do you hear that?" She was already staring wide-eyed at the ceiling. "It's never done that before," she whispered. We got out of bed and crept towards the kitchen. The door was closed. A sliver of light shone from underneath it. We never left the kitchen light on. From behind the door, along with the now 4-note whistle, came another sound. The soft, rhythmic scrape of a knife being sharpened. Clara grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. She shook her head, her eyes pleading. "Don't open it." But I had to know. I reached out, my hand trembling, and pushed the door open. The kitchen was blazingly bright. The kettle on the cold stove was screaming its distorted tune, jets of steam shooting from its spout. And sitting at our kitchen table was a man. He was gaunt, spectral, dressed in clothes from another time. He was sharpening a long, wicked-looking carving knife on a whetstone, his movements slow and practiced. Scrape, scrape, scrape. He didn't look at us. He just stared at the wall, humming along with the kettle's shrieking tune. We ran. We didn't grab a coat, our phones, nothing. We just ran out into the freezing night, down the dark, wooded driveway in our pajamas. We never went back. We live in an apartment in the city now. We lost the cottage, everything in it. But sometimes on quiet nights when the wind is just right, I'll hear it, faint from a distance, a low, mournful 3-note whistle. And I know he's not in the house anymore. The kettle called him forth, and now he's just looking for a new home, for a new stove to sit on. And I live with the chilling certainty that one day I'll wake up to the smell of pipe tobacco in my own bedroom. Story 5, The Lockbox. After my father's stroke, the difficult task of clearing out his old workshop fell to me. He was a clockmaker, a man of immense precision and quiet habits. The workshop was a sacred space I'd rarely been allowed in as a child, a place that always smelled of machine oil, ozone, and sawdust. Now, it was a frozen tableau of his interrupted life. Half-assembled clockwork guts lay scattered across his workbench, tiny gears and springs gleaming under the single, naked bulb. In the bottom drawer of his heavy steel tool cabinet, buried under schematics and worn chamois cloths, I found the lockbox. It was made of a dark, non-reflective metal, cold and unnaturally heavy. It had no keyhole, no combination dial, no visible seams. It was just a perfect, featureless cube about 8 inches across. The only marking was a single, small symbol etched into the top, a circle with a dot in the center, like a stylized eye. It felt wrong. Holding it made the fine hairs on my arms stand up. A deep, subaudible hum seemed to vibrate from its core into the bones of my hands. My father, A man who documented every screw and spring had left no note, no reference to it in his meticulous ledgers. It was a secret he'd taken with him into silence. I took it home. I told myself it was a puzzle, a final challenge for my distant, brilliant father. I tried everything. I tapped it, weighed it, even placed it on a high-frequency vibration plate I borrowed from university lab. Nothing. It was inert, impenetrable. I'd leave it on my desk and catch myself staring at it for hours, the strange hum of constant, barely perceptible pressure at the back of my skull. I started dreaming of it, not as a box, but as a dark, silent room I was trapped inside. The first crack appeared after 3 weeks. I was frustrated, exhausted. I slammed my palm down on the box's surface and shouted, What do you want?" The moment my skin made contact, the hum stopped. Abruptly. The sudden silence was deafening. Then, with a sound like a sigh of compressed air, a hair-thin line appeared on the top surface, outlining a perfect square panel. It hissed open, tilting upward on an unseen hinge. Inside, there was no mechanism, no clockwork, just darkness. A perfect, light-absorbing void that seemed to go on forever. And from that darkness drifted a smell I will never forget. The sterile, metallic scent of a hospital room, mixed with the coppery tang of blood and the faint, sweet fragrance of my father's favorite pipe tobacco. I should have slammed it shut. I should have thrown it into the river. But I didn't. I was mesmerized. I leaned closer, peering into the abyss. And the abyss peered back. The darkness inside swirled, coalescing into an image. It was my father's workshop, but from a strange, high angle, as if seen from a corner of the ceiling. I saw myself from earlier that day, hunched over my desk, staring at the box. The image shifted, showing me asleep in my bed, my face twisted in a nightmare. It showed me a memory from a week prior, an argument I'd had with my sister that no one else could have witnessed. The box wasn't a container. It was a periscope, a window into everything. The past, the present, moments intimate and unseen. I spent days lost in it, watching forgotten childhood Christmases, observing my neighbors in their private moments, a voyeur to the entire unvarnished tapestry of life around me. The power was intoxicating. It was also corrosive. I began to see things I was never meant to see. The quiet despair in my wife's eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. The secret my best friend had kept for 20 years. I saw the precise moment my father had his stroke, alone in this very workshop, his hand clutching his chest as he reached for a tiny gear, his eyes wide with surprise, and then nothing. The void showed me his final, solitary moment with clinical, horrifying clarity. The box started opening on its own. I'd wake up to find it gaping on my desk, the void within shimmering, offering up new, private horrors. It was hungry. It fed on my revulsion, my terror. Last night, it showed me something new. It was a live feed from the perspective of someone walking through a dark house. My house. The view moved from the living room, down the hall, and stopped at the closed door of my bedroom. The door handle began to turn. I screamed and slammed the lid shut. The hum returned, louder now, vibrating through the floorboards. It's on my desk as I speak. The hum is a constant physical presence in the room. The lockbox is no longer a secret my father kept. It's a secret he contained. And I was the fool who opened the door. The box is open more often than it is closed now. It doesn't need my permission anymore. It's watching. It's always watching. And the last thing it showed me, just before I started recording this, was my own face, pale and terrified, from a vantage point directly behind me. It's not just a window, it's a door. And something is finally coming through. If you have a story you'd like to share with the Ledger, send it to our email. The link is in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more true horror stories every week. You're not just listening, you're bearing witness. Good night.